Lord, the light of your love is shining in the midst of the darkness shining. Jesus, light of the world, shine upon us. Set us free by the truth you now bring us. Shine on me. Shine on me. Shine, Jesus, shine. Fill this land with the Father's glory. Blaze, Spirit, blaze. Set our hearts on fire. Flow, river, flow. Flood the nations with grace and mercy. Send forth your word, Lord, and let there be light.
Good morning and welcome to Let the Bible Speak. My name is Alex Meredith. I'm the minister for the Marquette Church of Christ. I'm happy that you're here with me today. We are in Matthew chapter 10. We are continuing this series that we started a while back on the Gospel of Matthew, and we're making our way through that. The title of today's lesson is When the Church Does Its Job. Now, I think we talk quite a lot, both in this program and in the Marquette congregation. We tend to talk quite a lot about what happens when the church messes up, how to deal with that, how to stay away from those mistakes. Today, I actually want to talk about what happens when the church does things right, what that looks like. So we'll get to the text in Matthew chapter 10 here in just a minute. I wanted to share a couple things with you first. A few months ago, I decided to take a few flight lessons out of K.I. Sawyer, or out of the Marquette Sawyer Airport. And the way the process works, you go with a flight instructor, and the first goal, the first real milestone that they want to get with you is get you to where you can do it by yourself, and you don't need them there in the airplane with you. And I remember it was in early March, actually. I think it was March 2nd, if I remember correctly. He got out of the airplane. We were doing some stuff beforehand. He got out of the airplane and took off. And it was a strange feeling because you're suddenly there in an airplane all by yourself, and it's like, okay, the only way that this is getting back down is either you crash or you got to figure out how to land this thing, you know? So it's a little daunting. And it all worked out great, but there's something frightening about realizing that, okay, it's on you now. You can't turn and say, I didn't hear, what that radio call was. How do I do this? That's not an option anymore. You're on your own. I remember back when I was probably, 10, 11 or so years old. I don't remember exactly the age or the age that it's supposed to happen. But I remember the first time I was left home alone, okay? The first time I was at home alone, we had a little toy poodle named Shiloh. And so parents left, sisters weren't there. And it's like, okay, Shiloh, me and you, the toy poodle and the 10-year-old boy are now the lone defenders of the house. And then, of course, you hear some noise that's probably the refrigerator, cooling the air inside. But you don't know what it is. You're not used to hearing those sounds. You're not used to thinking about those sounds because you're used to other people being with you. And you're not alarmed by those sounds. But all of a sudden, you're by yourself and you hear the sound and it's, am I going to have to, what's happening? Who's here? Who's at the door? It's scary when you're all on your own. In Matthew chapter 10, the disciples, back in chapter 9, Jesus talked about the lost sheep, the scattered, shepherdless sheep of Israel. It's clear that something needed to be done. It's clear that the people of Israel need help. And in Matthew chapter 10, the disciples are being sent out on their own to help Israel's lost sheep. So let's take a look at this. This is Matthew chapter 10, starting in verse 1. The instructor is leaving. And he called to him his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out, and to heal every disease and every affliction. The names of the 12 apostles are these: first, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew his brother, James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the tax collector, James the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. These 12 Jesus sent out, instructing them, "Go nowhere near the Gentiles, and enter no town of the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep," there you have that language again, "of the house of Israel, and proclaim as you go, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse lepers, cast out demons. You received without paying, give without pay. Acquire no gold or silver or copper for your belts, no bag for your journey, or 2 tunics, or sandals, or a staff, for the laborer deserves his food. And whatever town or village you enter, find out who is worthy in it, and stay there until you depart. As you enter the house, greet it. And if the house is worthy, let your peace come upon it. But if it is not worthy, let your peace return to you. And if anyone will not receive you or listen to your words, shake off the dust from your feet when you leave that house or town. Truly I say to you, it will be more bearable on the day of judgment for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah than for that town." Now, there are a few things that caught my attention in that passage. First of all, the very first thing, you notice it lists the names of the disciples. At first, it says in chapter 10, verse 1, it says he called to him his 12 disciples. But then, right before it lists them, it uses a different word. Now, he calls them apostles. It's actually Matthew describing them that way. So, a disciple is a student, an apostle is somebody who is sent out. That's literally what the word means. And that's what they're doing. Suddenly, at one time you're the student, but now you're going to be sent out, and now you're expected to do it all on your own, right? So they go from disciples to apostles. You also see that this mission is very focused on Israel, at least for now. That's not the case later on when we get into the book of Acts. That's going to change. But for now, the salvific mission of God is focused on the nation of Israel. He says, don't go into any of the villages of the Gentiles or the Samaritans. They're saving the lost sheep of the house of Israel right now. And then, did you notice how simple the message was? He said, go into these towns and tell them, what was it? The kingdom of heaven is at hand. Now, they were going to demonstrate that was true through these really miraculous, amazing things. They would cast out demons, they would heal the sick, right? But the message itself was really simple. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. God is establishing this kingdom through his Messiah that he promised back in the days of the prophets. God's people are going to be restored now, right? That's what he's saying. You notice the complete dependence that they have on God. He says, don't take even a bag of money with you. Just your clothes and a staff. That's all you need. God will provide for you along the way as you go. You'll be fed, but I don't want you receiving payment from these people for the services that you render. You need to be completely reliant on God. God will provide. And then finally, you have the inevitable mixed response. There are going to be some people who respond well to this message. They receive you. And then some people they're not going to want to listen to you. In which case, shake the dust off your feet and move on, right? So this is a daunting task for these disciples, now apostles, to take on alone. Now, in the rest of chapter 10, the whole rest of the chapter is dedicated to Jesus explaining to his disciples, now apostles, what to expect if they embrace this mission. He's telling them, okay, if you all go out and do what I told you to do, here are the things that you can expect to happen to you. We already got a glimpse of this in the passage that we read, but now we're going to get a little bit more detail. Now, the reason why we're focusing in on this is because I don't think this is just about them. I think this passage reveals what the church can expect if it does its job. What the church can expect to have happen if it embraces its duty to evangelize the nations. So, here's the first thing God's people can expect. And the first thing that we'll notice in pursuit of God's mission to bring the gospel to the nations, we can expect unjust persecution. That's the very first thing you can expect here. Unjust persecution. He says in Matthew 10:16 and following, "Behold, I am sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Beware of men, for they will deliver you over to courts and flog you in their synagogues, and you will be dragged before governors and kings for my sake, to bear witness before them and the Gentiles." Over in verse 22, he says, "You will be hated by all for my name's sake." Over in verse 25, he says, "If they have called the master of the house Beelzebul," that's what they accused him of. He's working by the prince of demons. "How much more will they malign those of his household?" So in other words, look how they treated me. You shouldn't expect to be treated any better, right? It was hard for me. You can expect it's going to be hard for you too if you're walking in my footsteps. If everybody is happy with you, if everybody around you is always happy with you, you might be doing something wrong. I know that sounds kind of strange, but it's probably true. Because either, on one hand, it's possible that you're a really big people pleaser. This is a big part of my personality. I don't like conflict. I don't like confrontation. So I'm a big people pleaser. Sometimes that's a good thing because you want to do your best, so far as it depends on you, to live peaceably with everyone, right? But sometimes that makes you, or that leads you or tempts you to make compromises on things that you really shouldn't compromise on. So either you're a major people pleaser to a fault, or your social interactions are just limited to the small circle of yes men you've surrounded yourself with, right? If nobody is ever upset with you, you might be doing something wrong. Now, again, we don't want to upset people intentionally. Again, Romans chapter 12, verse 8, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. We don't want to upset people with bad conduct. You don't want to upset people for doing wrong things. That's what Peter warns against in 1 Peter 4:15. But upsetting people sometimes is the natural consequence of following Jesus. That's why in Matthew 10, verse 38, Jesus says, "Whoever does not take his cross and follow me is not worthy of me." If we're going to follow Jesus, that means picking up our own cross, and that means suffering, right? Now, if we're honest, when we talk about persecution, let's take an honest look at things. Is the church in the modern day in the United States persecuted to the degree that first century Christians were persecuted? I mean, really, are we persecuted to the degree that even other people in other parts of the world right now, today, are being persecuted? No, right? It is present in other places, and we could maybe foresee a day in which, maybe here, sometime in the near future, I don't know, but it's conceivable that that persecution could be here one day, right? So we can expect that at the very least it's a possibility, if not a likelihood. There's a man named Paul Schneider. Paul Schneider was a preacher in the Christian church in 1930s Germany. And Schneider, as the Nazi regime rose to power, one of the things that they did was they were very vocal and very outspoken against the church. And Schneider took particular issue with the Heil Hitler phrase that became really kind of a popular rallying cry for that party. And his problem lied in the fact that when you say a Heil Hitler, you are saying something along the lines of salvation through Hitler, right? And he's famous for having rebutted that. And he said, quote, "You can only receive salvation from the Lord and not from a human being." So he was a vocal opponent of all of this as this happened. And at first, the church, under pressure by the German government, moved him to this middle of nowhere remote post. So they moved where he was working at first. But then finally, he was so outspoken, they took him into what they called protective custody, which was really just an excuse to arrest him without cause, right? And there he is in prison. Every day, he didn't have his book with him, his Bible with him, but from memory, he would quote scripture from his cell there in the prison at the Buchenwald internment camp. And he would do this loud enough for the other prisoners to hear. And eventually the guards got so fed up with it. The warden at that camp gave him an ultimatum. They said, look, you can either stop doing this and stop preaching, and you can sign this document saying that you're going to stop preaching, or we're going to have to take further action. And he refused. He refused to stop. He continued going back to his cell, continued quoting scripture, continued talking about Christ. And as a result, he was eventually executed. That was in 1939. Now, we would love to believe that we are insulated from that. That's 1939. That's back in the days of black and white TV, right? Are we really as insulated as we might think? 1939 was not that long ago, guys. Do we really think that nothing like this could ever possibly happen to us? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But if you're going to follow Christ, I know that means picking up your cross. What that cross looks like precisely might be different for different people, but you can expect that you're going to be treated unfairly, that you're going to be unjustly persecuted one way or another as a result of your faith. If God's people embrace this mission to go out into the world and to deliver the gospel, one of the other things they can expect is profound division. Profound division. Matthew chapter 10, verse 21 reads, "Brother will deliver brother over to death, and the father his child, and children will rise against parents and have them put to death." That's going to be the result of the gospel being spread throughout the world. And later on in the same chapter, verses 34 through 36, "Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a person's enemies will be those of his own household." Now there's an obvious question here, which is, why would Jesus want to do that? Jesus is not describing what he wants to happen. He's describing the inevitable result of people's response to the gospel message. It's not talking about Jesus' intent. He doesn't want to divide families. He doesn't want to cause strife and division. But that's what's going to happen because of humanity's hardness of heart, because of our stubbornness, because of our tendency to turn against each other so easily and quickly. That's the inevitable result. This was actually prophesied about back in Micah chapter 7, verse 6. There is a prophecy about how God was going to bring his salvation to the world, but the world was going to resist it. And as a result, people's own family would turn against each other. That's not what God wants, but that's what's going to happen. The Christian mission is inherently divisive because the Christian message is inherently divisive. Right? You think about what the Christian message is, which kind of boils down to two simple things. It boils down to sin, and it boils down to imminent return and judgment of Christ. You have sinned and you fall short of the glory of God. We all do. We've messed up. We've rebelled against God's design, God's created order. And now God soon is going to send back his son Jesus into the world. He's going to return. He's going to restore the world, but part of that restoration involves the judgment of the living and the dead. It involves separating the righteous from the unrighteous, the good from the evil, the righteous from the wicked. And you've got to figure out where you are with all of that. So the gospel message itself is inherently confrontational because you're calling people out on their sins, right? Nobody likes that. Nobody likes being called out for their mistakes. It's inherently confrontational. Here's the third thing that's going to happen. If the church really embraces its mission, God is going to faithfully provide for his people. He's going to faithfully provide. In the passage that we read already, back in Matthew 10, verse 9, he told them, "Acquire no gold or silver for your belts, no bag for your journey, or 2 tunics, or sandals, or a staff." I actually misspoke earlier. They weren't told to take a staff. Don't take anything. You don't need it. God will provide everything that you need. Fast forward to verse 19. He says, "When they deliver you over, do not be anxious about how you are to speak or what you are to say, for what you are to say will be given to you in that hour. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you." Not only would they be provided for materially, they would be provided for in the words that came to mind to speak. God would provide for them everything that they needed. And then finally in Matthew 10:22, he says, "The one who endures to the end will be saved." Ultimately, this leads Jesus to tell his disciples something very important about the Christian mission. And we see this in verses 26 and following of Matthew chapter 10. He tells them, and this is something we need to be reminded of so often, he tells them, "Fear not. Do not be afraid." Did you know there are a lot of commands, there are a lot of imperatives in the Bible? The most common, the one that occurs the most frequently, is the command, "Fear not." Do not fear, or some close variation of it. Do not fear. It was told to Abraham. It was told to Moses. It was told to Joshua. It's been told to people time and time again, and it's being told to us. Do not be afraid. Just in Matthew chapter 10, it appears 3 times. In verse 26, "Have no fear of them." Verse 28, "Do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul." Verse 31, "Fear not, therefore, you are of more value than many sparrows." Now, I recognize that when we're told, "Fear not, do not be afraid," that's a difficult command. Because what you're essentially telling people is, I want you to feel different. I know you feel afraid, but just don't. Stop. You know, the old Bob Newhart, stop it. Just stop it. Partly, this command, it is an imperative. But partly, it's also a promise. It's saying you don't have to fear, you don't need to be afraid, because God will provide for you, God will preserve you. John MacArthur is a prominent, prolific Christian preacher and author. He recently made a comment about the recent decline of biblical Christianity in the United States. Not Christianity generally, but biblical Christianity. And what he attributed it to, it's a very simple line. He says, look, the reason that biblical Christianity is declining, quote, many prefer comfort to challenge. Many people would rather sit back in the comfort of their own homes and neglect the mission that the church has been given rather than go out boldly and fulfill the commission to tell the nations about him and about Jesus. I think that's true. But we as a church, the Marquette congregation, all the other congregations, we have to be willing to do our job. If we do that, we might be antagonized. We might be unpopular. We might be ridiculed. But God will provide for us, right? By the way, I think oftentimes we think about Christian mission, we think about evangelism as something far off. We think, well, we've got to send missionaries to Africa. You realize, right, that our own backyard is a mission field. And even more than that, evangelism begins in our own homes. It begins with our own families, right? There's a passage in Matthew 10 that really sums the whole thing up. This is Matthew 10, verse 32 and 33. So everyone who acknowledges me before men, I also will acknowledge before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, I also will deny before my Father who is in heaven. I challenge you to acknowledge Jesus as your King, as your Lord, as your Savior. Do that today. If you need to come to your local church and make that confession, we're ready to have you. We would love to see you do that. I want to read this last passage to you. This is a passage that I hope will encourage some reflection, and I hope it will encourage you. This is from Revelation chapter 2, verses 10 and 11. Listen to this. This is something that Jesus is telling the church in ancient Smyrna. Do not fear what you are about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested. And for 10 days you will have tribulation. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The one who conquers will not be hurt by the second death. That's the whole idea right there. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. Churches are not measured by attendance or money or by how many decibels they reach in the worship service. They're measured by their faith and by their fulfillment of God's mission to tell the world of Christ. We need to remember that as the world has flipped a script on what success looks like. Fulfill God's mission today in your own life and in your church. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. May God bless you. Have a wonderful week.
Father's glory blaze, Spirit blaze, set our hearts on fire. Flow, river flow, flood the nations with grace and mercy. Send